the issues that you might have within you, you will see those issues play out in your business. Like if you're scatterbrained and you're not organized, your business will start to reflect that trait in you. Jared, Motherfucking Williams.
What's up, man?
Nothing, dude. Chilling, having a good time in the basement. Coffee's kicking in. It's good.
Nice. Looking good. I like your lights.
Yeah, thanks, man. There's a little blue one in the corner.
Yeah.
Which it's cool. Trying to make my screen bigger, dude, and it's like bugging me. I can't do it.
Oh, dude, work is hard.
Dude, work is hard. Well, we were talking about right before we decided to trigger this event about well, we were talking about you're waking up really early right now. You're waking up at 4 a.m. and
4
getting
a.m.
stuff done.
Yeah.
Boy, Alex Hormozy, shout out to the Hormozy Nation.
Like I was going to tell you about this on our last podcast, but then we got like sidetracked.
Sure.
Where, because we were talking about schedule, and I don't even remember what we got sidetracked on, but
I don't remember either. It was awesome.
The whole talk
100% awesome.
It was 100% rad.
Dude, it was.
The whole talk started with me going, "Hey, I got a new way to schedule my life. I've been like trying to figure out a schedule that works where I can be productive and actually get stuff done." One thing I have learned about myself, in the last couple months, is that I solely base my feeling of productivity, like I'm having a good day if I'm productive, and then
sure,
if I'm productive is based on if I got stuff done at work, right? Like I like to work a lot, and I like to move forward in work, and I like to see progress be made. And so for me, on a everyday or weekly or monthly basis, I want to see forward progress on something. And that might be like I got a little addicted to that doing my plumbing business, because I got to there was so much forward movement and so much going on every day.
It's so fast, very fast.
And so fast, and it was so exciting. It was fun. But during that time, I did a really terrible job of being a good dad and a good husband. And not that I was a bad dad or a bad husband, but I definitely didn't prioritize time for those things. So
right.
Since I've been in Florida, I've been trying to figure out like, how do I win at work, win at my marriage, win at being a dad, and win at being a friend, and win at still like making time for me to get smarter, like in investing in myself. And I think I have it figured out, except like when I'm like 3 or 4 days in and I'm tired.
Yeah. Let me, I just listened to a podcast yesterday that talked about the addictive nature of success.
Yeah.
And how, unfortunately on the podcast, they talked about this for like 3 seconds, which sort of annoyed me because I thought the podcast was going to be about, it was Joe Rogan, and they just talked about fights for like 2.5 hours. That was pretty much it. But the guy brought up this point where he was like, I was addicted to success. And that's why I did the things I did. And I was so furious when I wouldn't become successful. And I realized it because it was this addictive behavior that I had acquired or I had nurtured, which I never really thought about it that way because, we look at it and we're like, okay, well, I need to do the things I need to do to become successful. And it's not like this addiction, it's this necessity. But then it becomes an addiction. Like you just perfectly laid out where you're like, I'm addicted to this feeling of moving forward. And if I don't feel like I'm moving forward, then you start to tell yourself like, Jared, you're an idiot for not moving forward and you're doing a bad job. And you start to sort of like talk down to yourself when in reality, you're just in the middle of an addiction of sorts and you're beating yourself up for something that, you probably have little control over, or you're not even seeing very honestly.
Maybe that's my whole problem. Maybe
that you're just addicted to success.
But I want to be successful in like all areas, right?
Yeah. So there was this other point that they brought up. Sorry, I just want to finish with this point.
There's the balance of it that's tough.
Exactly. And so the guy said that like I actually think it was Joe Rogan. He said something like equilibrium is like the important metric that we're going for. Because everybody knows this, right? If you're 100% successful in your business, then mathematically speaking, you can't be successful in anything else because you're capped out, right? You've done all the business stuff and that's it. Your marriage is going to suck. Your kids are going to hate you because you're 100% successful in business. So it's finding this equilibrium in all your areas. That is the key. And that's what we have to keep in our heads when we're doing what we're doing.
Right. And then how do you structure that? And I think because we all only have so much time in a day.
Right.
And there are things you can do to get your time back in business, and you should do those things. So if you're growing your plumbing business, well, you can hire technicians. Once you have enough technicians, then you can solely move into just management role. And then you can grow your business, and then you can solely move into, ownership role. And then you can really refine your business. And then you really just only have to spend a little bit of time on your business. So you can do these things to get your time back. I think what a lot of business owners fall into is like you said, they get addicted to that success, and then they just fill up their time with more things. And that's what I would do. And I would not structure my day in a way where it made sense, where I could get maximum amount of work done in the shortest time possible so that I still had time for exercise, learning, my wife, my daughter, all that other good stuff, friends, church, that kind of stuff. So for me, I think looking at it, I wrote down everything that I had to do in one day, and I wrote down how much time those things take. And then I put them in a calendar, and I was trying to structure them and figure out how to move them around so that everything works together. And it was impossible. And I was like, okay, so we talked about this, I talked to you about this, and you came up with a solution where it we freed up one of our employees' time, which then in turn meant that he could take on some of the tasks that I was doing, and that freed up some of my time. And then I rearranged my schedule in a way that so far it works really well. So I've been waking up at 4 a.m. and I brush my teeth, I come downstairs, I make a French press thing of coffee. Takes me about 15 minutes. I'm at work by 4:15, 4:20. I'm in my office. I'm working. And actually, I've been structuring it so the night before, I do my Bible reading, I do my journal, and then I write down what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Right.
And then that way I've got it. I wake up, I do my coffee, I come to my office, I grab my journal, and I look in there, and I'm like, what was I going to do? What was I supposed to do today? And I just start checking those things off.
Right.
And it's I've been so productive the last 3 days, despite having even a bunch more going on in my life. It's been rad. I've been able to get work done and feel like I'm moving forward at least that 1% every day. I've exercised all those days. I've been done with work earlier. I've spent time with my family, spent time with my wife, did some things with my daughter, made dinner even. It's been awesome. But here's the catch. I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah. I wrote down as you're speaking the idea of novelty. Novelty is really exciting. New things, new ways of doing things is awesome. Yeah. And I think there's a physiological component to it because you get this kick, right? You're oh my gosh, especially let's tie it back into the addiction conversation where okay, your body noticed that you have become very successful in these waking up early.
Yep.
And then you get this kick of endorphins and this dopamine, and that surges you through the rest of your day. You're I found it. This is what I'm going to do. And then you love your family well, and you do this stuff, and you start to generate this momentum. But meanwhile, you're sacrificing the only thing in your life that has any ability to rehabilitate you, which is your sleep.
Yep.
And so at the end, it's, if you can figure out your sleep, then you can protect that. This is my opinion, right? Is if you can protect your sleep, then you can do whatever you want. And if that means you go to bed asleep by 8 so that you can wake up at 4 and get that 8 hours of sleep that we're supposed to get. And I've listened to a lot of people, and I used to think I could survive on 6. I thought I was a 6-hour sleep guy. And what I tell people, because I used to wake up at 3 a.m. and go to work 12
I've always heard everybody's you're either set, you're 7 to 9 hours.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard.
And I've known people who've gotten 6, but I look at them, I'm like, dude, you look tired.
So here's the thing.
There's no way you're not tired.
This is what I tell people. I'd be like, yeah, man, I can function on 5 to 6 hours average. And then without fail, I would say this with such confidence. And then I would say this next line every time. I would say, oh, except I almost always fall asleep on the drive home.
Dude,
without fail.
I
I would
remember you
tell people
saying
that. And like I would, and like I'd be so confident with the first thing, and then that
Yep.
second thing would come as I realized that what I'm saying is actually bullshit.
And then
That
you'd
like, wait a
yawn every
second,
time too.
yeah, and then
You'd
I'd
always
go,
yawn, be like, "Oh, I'm so tired."
so it's like, and I did that for a long time. But I just, for me, sleeping is very important, and for the last 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks, I've just focused on like, okay, I'm just gonna go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And luckily with my schedule, I start work at 9. And so I can go to bed at 10 and still get 8 hours of sleep and still get my workout in. I'll lose out if I do that on certain things, right? If I don't get up early enough, I'll lose out on, prayer or Bible reading, my own reading time, because then my day just stretches. So if I could go to bed at 8 and then wake up at 4, which is what I want to do, then I can like do a whole bunch more. But I don't want to sacrifice all that sleep, because in my experience, it's just the diminishing returns kick in, and then you actually become less productive over the long run. And then like I wake up at 4 when I'm really tired, and I do like 45 minutes of stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm literally falling asleep at my desk. I might as well just go back to sleep. Like, screw it. It's not even worth it.
Yeah, that doesn't work. I think you're right. I think I'm going to do it one more day. I'll recoup on the weekend. I'll just sleep in on the weekend. I think next week I'm going to try waking up at 5. Bed by 10, up at 5, try the 7 hours.
Sure.
Usually I go get in bed about 9:30, and I mean, if I just curl in bed at 9:30, I'm sleeping by like 9:31. So I'm pretty lucky on that regard. Like, I don't take a long time to fall asleep. But so if I can be sleeping by 10, wake up at 5, I'll see how I do for a week on 7 hours. I'll let you know. I'll let you know next week how that
And the
goes.
cool thing about your lifestyle is you already eat healthy, right? Because I think a big part of this is people will try these things and they won't drink enough water and they won't eat healthy.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, I'm gonna try this whole new sleep cycle thing. But like not everything is firing yet. So like I think you have a good chance to be able to like, you have a really good test case for 7 hours because you're eating well and you're exercising, you're doing all these other things. So you're not like gonna screw yourself.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably an important thing to think about too. Like business owners, they really need to protect their schedule. Like we talked about, and really, because I remember, man, doing like, there were times growing my plumbing business where it was like, dude, like, where am I going to find time to get this done? And I remember Eric Gettinger, Eric Gettinger, he would always tell me, you only got time for what you got time for. It would piss me off. Dude, whatever. Like, I'd be complaining to him. Dude, I got to get this done. I don't have any time for it. I don't know how to make time for it. Dude, you only have time for what you make time for. I'd be like, oh, like, shut up, dude. You work at the church. You just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But he was right. You really do. You only have time what you make time for. And like, scheduling a time for something and then committing to it is the only way you're going to get the stuff done that you need to get done. So like, growing your plumbing business, you got to work on your hourly rate calculator, right? You need to work on your price book. That's a lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to go to work every day, trying to get jobs done, get jobs billed, probably take care of your schedule, do all those things. So how do you get it all done? Like, I've had a ton of people come to me and be like, dude, how do you find the time to get all this stuff done to keep my plumbing business moving forward? I think there's 2 parts to that. I actually think there's 3 parts to that. You only have time for what you make time for, right? So you got to make time for those things. And then I think you really got to protect your schedule. So like, when you do make time for those things, you don't let anything else get in the way of that time. And then I think, like, as you grow, so like in the beginning, you're going to have to do that, and you're going to have to probably set aside extra time.
Sure.
If you're just starting out and you're answering the phone and you're handling your schedule and you're running the calls and you're trying to build a customer and you're trying to pay all your bills, you're going to have to be working Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day in your business. And then you're going to have to set aside time after that or before that or on weekends to work on your business. But then you're going to very quickly probably get to this point where it's like, okay, I've got some money in the bank. I'm busy as I'll get out. I need to carve out some time to start working on my business during working hours. So like an example of that is like hiring a CSR. Like your wife was my first CSR, right? And it was like total game changer. Total, like, I was totally mind blown. I was nervous as all get out to hire somebody. Like, I didn't even know your wife that well at that point in time.
No,
I didn't even
I
know
think
you like that well at that point in time. Like, I knew
let's see.
you way better
I think
than your wife.
were we doing house church at that time?
I think it was before that. But I think me and you had just started like talking a bit.
Yeah, because we probably connected on the house church idea around that time, and that's where our sort of relationship, like, we actually came into the same circles.
Yeah.
And then maybe my wife just left her job or something, and then you were like,
She
"Oh,
did.
well."
She did. She was working at that physical therapy place, right?
Yep, and she just left that, and
Yep,
we
and
would
she
talk about
just
that.
left. And it was like a couple weeks later, and I was like, I spend a lot of time taking phone calls, writing my schedule down, worrying about jobs in the future. And I asked my coach, and I was like, should I hire somebody to answer my phone? And he was like, yeah, definitely. I was like, okay. And it was the first time I'd ever hired anybody. But and so it was scary. And I remember thinking, like, I went to my coach and I was like, dude, that freaked me out. And he was like, well, how come? Like, why did it freak you out? Because you're gonna have to do this a lot more. So you figure out
Sure,
why it
yeah,
freaked you
yeah.
out. And it was really just like I had controlled the phone and the schedule, and giving that up to somebody else was scary because then now it's out of my control, right? But what it did was free up a ton of my time and a ton of my brain space. So now I didn't have to work all day to pay the bills and put money in the bank, and I could actually start working on my business during that time. It was fantastic. Yeah. And so I think like that's the second key of it, right? Is as you go through your plumbing business, there's always going to be these times where you're growing and it's going to require a lot from you. And you're going to be doing these tasks over here because you had to, but there's going to be a time where you have to ask yourself, do I need to do these tasks anymore? So I always would make a giant list of all the things I'm doing. And I would do this every, I don't know, month or two, or anytime I felt like I had too much to do, or I was overwhelmed, or I was stressed out. I would just make a giant list and I would ask myself a few questions like, can I automate this so that so that nobody has to do it? Like, can it be automated? If it can't be automated, can I delegate it to somebody else? And then probably even before you ask yourself those, you should be asking yourself, should I actually even be worrying about this right now?
Sure. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Is this something that even needs to be done? Like, do I even really need to do this, or can I not do this at all, or can I just do this at a later date?
Right.
Right. A lot of people are get overwhelmed just because they have like this giant task list, but really, if they look at it, they don't need to be working on all that stuff. I mean, that's basically what coaching is, right? It's like, hey, just work on these few things. Like if you really want to move ahead, work on these few things. It's identifying those to your client because you've been there and you can say, I know it's going to move you forward. Just focus on these few things. That's the power. That's really the power of coaching.
Is focus.
It's focus and like emotional support as well.
Sure. Yeah. From someone who's been there.
Yeah. Cause none of your family's been there and they're all going to think you're crazy. And so to have a coach there going, no, you're not crazy. This is a really good idea. Trust me. I've done it. You're going to be successful. And success is like, it's this close. It's right around the corner. That's super powerful. Dude, where was I going with that?
Well, you were going to have 3 things, but I don't actually remember where you're going with your 3 things. But you were going to I'm going to make these 3 points.
Dude, okay. The first one was you literally only have time when you make time for. So, and the way you make time for things is your schedule and protecting your schedule. Like tell yourself, I work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and maybe I work on some extra stuff between 5 and 6 or 5 and 7.
Yep.
Or maybe I put my kids to bed at 6 and then I work on the business from like 7 to 9. Or maybe I wake up early on Saturday and I work on it. Or maybe I wake up early during the week and work on it, or whatever works best for you, right? But make sure and schedule that time and like, keep your schedule and figure out a schedule that works for you. Like that's what I've been struggling with. I haven't had a schedule that's worked for me. I've been trying to figure out how to schedule my stuff so that it works for what I got going on, what my family's got going on, where I am at life. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else.
Of course.
Like not everybody's going to want to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning.
No.
And then the third thing was just ask yourself those questions. Do I actually need to do this? Can I do it later? Do I need to do it at all? Can I automate it? And then if you can't automate it, can I delegate this to somebody else? Or do I need to hire somebody? Am I at the point where I need to hire somebody else so that then I don't have to do all this stuff, right? Or can I hire somebody else to do these other things that are less important, so it'll free me up to do these things that are actually more important, right?
Right.
And that's going to be a constant process throughout your entire business. And you just constantly have to ask yourself those things and then define what it is that you should be working on, then make time for it and then schedule it. And that's how you get stuff done.
Right.
There's that saying, I know you've probably heard it, like 80% of your revenue or 80% of your success or 80% of your push forward, like your results, is based on 20% of your effort. And so if you can figure out what out of all the things you have to do, out of the 100% of the tasks that you have to do, what are the 20% that are going to be responsible for generating more revenue in your business or moving your business forward to where you want to go? If you can identify what those are and then wipe out the rest of the 80% or as much of it as you can, and then, make time for that 20% and then schedule that 20%. Now imagine how much faster your business is going to move forward because you're working on the things that are moving your business forward and you're not getting bogged down by all this other crap, right? You're only focused on the things that are going to push you forward, drive you forward, make you more money, grow your business, right? That's where it's at.
So tell me what you think about this. Because sometimes I know, like for me, if I find like the thing that I should probably do is like a complicated task that I don't really want to do for whatever reasons, right? Maybe it's just not the type of work I want to do. It's just stupid or it's tedious. Like in my mind, a price book would probably qualify for this answer where you're like, oh my gosh.
Like, it's not the fun
I hate
in the world.
this. Like this is so boring and it's just going to make my brain melt. So I've been thinking about like, okay, what are the steps we can do to sort of make ourselves understand how important it is to do it? And what I wanted to ask you is if you phrase it in this way, like, well, if I don't do this step, what will happen? What are the negative consequences of me, one, delaying the step or not doing this step? Because if we're talking about a price book, to me, and the little that I know, seems like that's a pretty important thing that the longer you wait on that, it's really going to hamper your business growth. Because you might have your hourly rate, but if your hourly rate actually isn't transferred into your whole product, then you're not really going to change. You don't have any tools to change anything. Right. So it's like you could sit down and be like, okay, if I don't do this, like when you just finished your long day and you're like, okay, I'm going to go do my stupid price book after dinner for 2 hours instead of like hanging out with the wife watching Netflix or whatever you want to do. Like, what's going to motivate you in that? You could be like, well, if I don't do this, then I will never achieve this. This will never happen, or this won't happen. I was thinking, like, what do you think about reverse engineering these tasks that we think suck, so that one, we could determine their validity? Because if I reverse engineer it and I'm like, actually, nothing bad will happen. Maybe this is a waste of time.
Well, oh my gosh, I don't need to do that. Yeah.
Or you reverse engineer it and you're like, okay, nothing will happen in my business if I don't do this task. I wanted to hear what your thoughts on that.
I think that's probably legitimate, but I would be careful because like you might not fully understand what that thing's going to do in your business.
Sure.
So like if somebody else is telling you, hey, you need to do this thing, trust me, but you don't quite understand why. or you don't understand the consequences of not doing it, then that could be a dangerous question to ask yourself, because you might not
Sure.
do something that you really should be doing.
Sure.
So I don't know how they would look at that to determine that, but like in the price book example, right? By
Mhm.
not getting your price book done, you're then requiring, like, you can't scale. Like,
Right.
you could get a couple techs, but then the more technicians you get, the messier it's gonna get, and it's actually gonna take
Mm.
up a ton of your time just
Mhm.
handling that mess. So if you could get the price book done and get it in your technician's hands in a way that they can use it and it's good, then it's gonna free up a bunch of your time managing this mess, okay?
Mhm.
And you might not realize that when you're in the beginning stages of your business,
Right.
especially, like, if
'Cause
it's just you and you're fine going out and, like,
right.
building the price
Mhm.
on the spot and telling the
Mhm.
customer the price, right? Where you might not have the insight to be like, "My my guys are not gonna be able to do that." Like,
Yeah, sure.
they need a price book. Like, because that's something
Mhm.
I wasn't aware of, like, how my guys are not gonna perform as well as I did, right?
Mhm.
There's no way. It's
Mhm.
because I had so much incentive to do well in
Right.
my
Sure.
business because everything was on the line.
Mhm.
So, and it was mine and I cared about it more than anything, right?
Right.
Your guys are
Mhm.
not like that. So,
Right.
so I would be careful asking yourself that question. I think it's a good question to ask, but if there's something that you know that you should be doing, like somebody else told you should be doing it, or you heard it on
Sure.
a
Of course.
podcast, like you should be
Mhm.
working on your price book, you should probably be like, I should probably work on my price book, right?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying because if you don't have the experience or the vision to like maybe think in that big picture,
Yeah,
then you just don't know how to think in that way.
right.
Because it's like I think even like now, like designing systems for Plum Social down the road. Like we were talking yesterday, using our CRM to be able to automate a bunch of things, just communications between coworkers and between
Right.
clients.
Yep.
Where like in my head, I'm like, okay. I mean, for me, that's sort of different because I think it's a fun project. But it's
Mhm.
one of those things where like I worked on it for like 3 hours yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I felt like I didn't make any progress because I was learning the systems.
Yep.
And afterwards, my wife was like, "So what'd you do today?" And I was like, "I don't think I did anything. I just
Yeah.
sat around." And then she's like, "Well, tell me what you did." And I was like, "Okay, well, I called all these people. I handled all this stuff. I did all these like things I needed to do. And then I learned this and I moved the ball slightly forward." And then I was like, I guess I did do stuff yesterday. I didn't walk away with like a prize. Like, look, I have a thing I made. But
Yep.
I did walk away with a movement towards a goal,
Yep.
which for us people who are like built on like, I need a metric of my success.
Mhm.
You might be able to identify with this a little bit, where if I don't have like a tangible product in my hand when I'm done at work, I feel like I've done something wrong.
Yeah, dude.
But the reality is sometimes that product is 3 weeks down the road, but I
Yep.
need to continually input to getting to that product. And that's probably how I need to measure. Did I do a good job today? Like, well, I moved the needle. I
Yep.
increased towards this. Like I worked on my price book this much. I'm not done with it, but I did this many more things. I
Yep.
did this many more things.
Yep.
And then before you know it, you're like, hey, I actually finished. And not
So
to get
that
discouraged because I didn't finish in one night.
Yeah, that right there, that was a really tough thing for me to get over when I moved out of the field and into the office. Because as a plumber out in the field, I was so used to, like, every day there was a finished something, right?
Right.
There was a physical change on somebody's plumbing that I
Right.
could step back and go, "I'm done."
Yeah.
Or at
I
least I'm
did that.
like, even if I'm like on a multi-day project, you could still look
Sure.
back and be like, I made a lot of progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back tomorrow and I'll finish it. Or I'll be back 2
Right.
days from now and this will be
Mm-hmm.
finished. It's gonna be sweet. So you get
Mm.
used to that. And then moving
Mm-hmm.
into the office, it was like there's never ending amounts of stuff to do. Like I
Right.
could be here
You
forever
just be fiddling. You're
and
just you could fiddle all day.
never get done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in your situation, what I learned to do was, and this will be helpful for anybody who's like transitioning from in the field to being the manager in their business. Um, when there was stuff where I had to spend time learning or multi-day
Mm-hmm.
things like a price book or anything like that, I would
Mm-hmm.
split it up into really small pieces, right? So like you had to learn this thing about high level. So I would say, okay, on my task list today is learn how to do this thing in high level.
Right. Sure.
And that would give me that, okay, I got something done. I learned it.
I learned the thing.
I didn't get the thing done, but I learned it. Gives you that, I checked this off. I actually got something done. Makes you feel good. Like with a price book, I would split it down into like tiny little chunks. Like, okay, I'm going to think about this as the bathroom, and I'm going to think about just the toilet, and I'm going to get the toilet done. Like I'm going to do all the pieces for a toilet and all my options for a toilet. I'm going to get all that stuff done. Okay. And then bam, I don't know, an hour later, 2 hours later, I got the toilet done. Sweet. I get to check that off. I got the toilet done. And then you feel like you got something done. It's just looking at things in much smaller pieces.
Yeah, that's super helpful because then you still get that tangible result where you like, because sometimes you can just get sucked into the information pit and you can just circle the drain and you can actually you could actually not get anything done. But like having like this marker of like, oh, like once you understand what you're doing, like when you're doing something new, like, okay, I don't even know what a marker is, but once you identify like, okay, this is what I need to do, then you can just like write that down like, oh, I need to create this and this. Like for me, it's like, okay, I need to create a second calendar and a new automation. Boom. Once I have that, now I have a thing, I can go, cool, I did a thing. Now what's next?
Yeah. So like for me, when I am writing in my journal, I always write the things that I need to do today or tomorrow, depending on when I'm doing my journal. I purposely break it up in my journal that way. So if I write down something that's a long project, I'll then, kind of tab over and down, and I'll split that long project up into pieces so that the next day when I get there, because I'll have a tendency to just bust through the long project with no breaks or anything. But if I split it up, then I can check each piece off. And even if I don't get the whole project done, I'll still feel good about it. And I'll tend to like take breaks between and actually do better at the project.
Right. Yeah. Because you're not rushing towards the end finished goal. You're actually you're just trying to accomplish each task, which then build into the big goal.
Just little,
and then before you know it, you got the thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. If you
it's kind of funny how like
over and over again, by the end of the year, you'll be, what's the statistic? It's like, it's not 365%, like 1% better every day equals
something.
It's like 1,000% better. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's more than
it compounds.
5%. It compounds, right? Yep.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like business is so funny because it's like you're constantly trying to motivate yourself to do things. And you're constantly trying to like figure out, like this whole conversation is revolving around us, like almost like, how can I trick myself into doing things better? We're not tricking ourselves, but we're working ourselves into a new mode of being that is more effective than what it was before. And so it's like before, like if you're not a business owner and you just go to work and you just do your job, like it's a different thought. But then once you like sort of go outside the business, you just sit there thinking like, how can I optimize all these weird things about myself to like be more productive? And you just get these weird headspaces, and it's just kind of a funny thing that we work on ourselves the whole time.
Yeah, it is. It is weird, and like, like even in all that, like you have to make time to do what you just said, to like think about those things, right?
Yeah, to think about yourself,
how you're using your time, to think about how you're acting, how you have to think about your business. Like you have to take time to just think, or you're not going to make it. Like if you're constantly doing, you're just going to be over there. You could be way off course, doing. And if you just took a second to think, you might be like, holy crap, what am I doing? Why am I working on this?
I know.
I should be way over here. It's kind of a funny deal.
And it's so important, like what you said about like taking time to like think about yourself and work on yourself, because really your business will become an extension of yourself. So I would guess that the issues that you might have within you will see those issues play out in your business. Like if you're scatterbrained and you're not organized, your business will start to reflect that trait in you. If you are like a totalitarian dictator and this is how it is, that will start to reflect itself.
Yes.
So it's like there's so much, and I guess you could use your business as sort of like a foil on yourself. Like if your business is starting to do one direction, you could go back and be like, is my life like this?
Yeah. Am I out of control? Scattered and organized?
Like, wait a second, like maybe try to do it both ways.
Yeah. I got one more thing to say before we end this thing. On that note, like, if you're going through business and you're like, and you have that realization, you take the time to think and you're like, dang, I am scattered and organized or unorganized. And that hurts me in these areas. Well, it's not that you all of a sudden have to become unscattered and unorganized. You might be able to pull somebody in and have them do these things that need to be organized and not scattered, right? So knowing like what you're bad at, and you should be working at getting better at it, but knowing what you're bad at and where you're good at, if you can focus on the things that you're good at and get other people to focus on the things that you're bad at who are actually good in those areas, you're going to be so much better off.
Yeah.
So much better off.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, dude.
Cool. Good talk, Jared. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Good combo, man. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Hey guys, if you liked that episode and you want to see more content like that, I picked out a special episode just for you. All you got to do is click right here. Go ahead and do it. Just click right there.